Welcome back. Thank you for coming to lesson four. I think starting with lesson three, for those of you who've been watching from the beginning, with lesson three, we talked a little bit about sets and runs. Lesson two and lesson one were a little bit more generic, a little bit more kind of easing you into the content of this game. But now, with starting with lesson three and moving to the rest of the lessons, we're really getting into the details of how to play Bukharo. So I think you'll find it to be a lot more useful and a lot more helpful with how you play the game at any time with this. I know there's a lot of concepts to come in, so if you have that are coming in. So if you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments or send me a private message or something. I'd be happy to answer them for you. In the last lesson, what we talked a little bit about sets and runs, and during the quiz, I kind of threw a curveball out there and I asked you about that one run that had a two in it, and it looked like it was a little bit strange, but it turned out to be a valid run. And I mentioned the reason was because the two is considered a joker, and that's what we're going to get into a little bit here, as promised. So today we're going to talk about jokers, which are, and excuse me, jokers, which are basically twos, and I'll get to that in a second, but also unnatural and natural sets and runs. So let's begin. Like I just said a minute ago, a two of any suit is a joker in Bukharo. So it's two of spades, clubs, diamonds, or hearts. They're all considered jokers in Bukharo. And if we go back to the last lesson for a quick second, I mentioned when you play sets that you can only play sets of aces and threes in the standard rules. And the reason for that is a three is considered the lowest number and the ace is considered the highest number. Now, some people might have thought at that point, hey, what about a two? A two is actually lower than a three. Well, now you kind of know why. Because a two is a joker in Bukharo, it's kind of a wild card. And one of the things that's special about a two is that it can take on any value. So it's not really the lowest card if it's it can be any value whatsoever. So because of that, a three is considered the lowest, and that's why you can only play sets of threes and aces in Bukharo. Anyway, anecdote aside, let's go back to talking about jokers. Now, what makes the Joker so special? Well, the key function of a Joker and the thing that makes it so versatile is that a Joker is dynamic. And when I say that, I mean that its value can change continuously within the set or run where it's played. Now, for a set that doesn't really do much of a I guess it doesn't provide much benefit for you because whether or not you have a three of clubs or a three of spades, you still need to have a three at all times. You can't switch it to a four. It would become invalid at that point. So it doesn't do much. But for runs, this can become incredibly useful. For example, let's say you've got a three, a five, and a six of clubs in your hand, but you're missing a four. If you have a joker, you could use that as the four of clubs. You could play that in place because the joker is dynamic enough to take that value and take that suit when it is being played. Now, the other thing is that when I refer to it being dynamic, is that if at some point, let's say you get that four of clubs, you can actually play it on that run, and what will happen is the you now have a three, four, five, six, and the joker now becomes a seven or a two of that particular suit, in this case clubs. So it can continuously change its value as your run develops. It's a very, very, very useful feature to have for any card in Bukharo, and that's one of the reasons that the two is so versatile. It also becomes very, very, very careful with how you play it, and it plays into the strategy of the game due to the next bullet point, and that is that once a joker is played in a set or run, it cannot be removed from that set or run. So you can't say, oh, I'd rather move it to this combination later or this collection afterwards. Once you play it on that specific run or that specific set, it is done. You cannot move it beyond that point. And that becomes very valuable later when you start strategizing how you use them in the game. Now, one thing to know about playing a joker, and it's kind of how I divide sets and runs before and after a joker is played. I like to divide them into two groups. And basically, they're what I call unnatural sets and runs and natural sets and runs. And once a joker is played, that set or run typically is considered unnatural. Okay, so if you think about it just on a very high level, and I say typically because there is one caveat to that rule, but typically a natural set is or a natural run is one that is played without a joker or without a two. An unnatural set or run is one that is played with a joker. Now, as I mentioned just a second ago, there is one exception to this rule, and that is mentioned here. If a joker is played in its natural position, and its natural position is as a two in a run of the same suit. So for example, if you have an ace 2 3 and the ace, the 2 and the 3 are all hearts, then the 2 is actually a 2. It's not being used as a joker. You're not having it be modified in any way to match a value or a suit that's different to the card that it actually is. In the case of an ace 2 3 where the ace and 3 are spades and the 2 is a hearts again, then you're changing the suit of that 2 to match up with the spades so you can make a valid run, in which case that 2 is no longer in its natural position. When you have a joker played in its natural position, then that set or run is considered natural. And that is a key thing that we'll talk about we'll talk about a little bit later as we're going over the rules for Bukharo. Okay, before I go into that stuff though, I wanted to throw another quiz at you so you could kind of apply all the discussion that we've been talking about up to this point. So going back to our card interface here, and let's start with the first question here. Is this a natural or unnatural set or run, excuse me? Well, obviously I don't see a joker in here, so it's got to be natural, right? And it is. How about this next one? We've got an ace of clubs, an ace of diamonds, an ace of spades, and a two of clubs. Would this be considered natural, unnatural, or unnatural? This is an unnatural set. There's a joker in it. It's not being used in its natural position. This is an unnatural set. How about this one over here? We've got a jack of spades, 10 of spades, 2 of spades, 8 of spades, 7 of spades. So all cards of the same suit, but the 2 is being used as a 9 in this case. Well, the 2 is not being used as a 2 of spades, so this has to be unnatural. And it is. Next one. 5 of diamonds, 4 of diamonds, 3 of diamonds, 2 of spades. This is kind of the flipped concept. You have the 2 being used as a 2, but it's being used for a different suit. So the spade it's not a spade run, it's a run of diamonds. In this case, the 2 is also not being used naturally, so it is an unnatural run. Last one. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, all of hearts. Well, here you can see the 2 is being used as a 2, and it is in the same suit as the rest of the suits in the run. So everything's a heart, including the 2. So this has to be natural. Boom, it is. Okay, one last question for you, and I got a big set here. A big run here. We've got 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 2, 3 of spades, where the 2 is obviously being used as a 4. Well, this is an unnatural run, right? Absolutely. However, there's one caveat to this. Well, not yet, but in the game, you can do something like this, which is why the strategy becomes so important for Bukharo. Let's say in the game, I get a 4 of spades later on. Well, check out what happens. I take the 2 out, I place the 4, and I have to use the same 2 in the same run, so I put it back in. But now the 2 is being used as a 2 in its run, and it has the same suit as the remaining cards in the run. They're all spades. Well, in this case, like it says below, we now have a natural run, right? We've now put the 2 in a position where it is being used as the same value as a 2 and as the same suit of the rest of the cards in that run. That's a perfect definition of what a natural position 2 is. So that's why it's so important to figure out where you want to play your 2s, because in the right situation, a 2 can go from making an unnatural run a natural run. Yes, an unnatural run to a natural run. Sorry. Okay, now why does this matter? Well, you definitely have an advantage when you play with jokers because it prevents you from having to wait until you get that exact card to use it, right? If you have, for example, that I think I gave the 6, 5, 2, 3 example before, where the 2 takes the place of a 4, you don't have to wait for that 4 of clubs. But in the game, and we'll talk about scoring next, natural sets and sequences give you more bonus points to help you win the game. I talked about one method being of scoring being playing runs and sets. Well, you can also get bonus points for how many cards are in the runs and the sets that you played and whether or not those are unnatural sets or runs. And we'll talk about this more in the next lesson, but scoring is critically dependent on whether or not your sets or runs are natural or unnatural, and it can become a big difference if you've played a natural set or run versus an unnatural set or run. So the real moral of this story is to use your jokers wisely. I've written my personal recommendation here, and that is to try and play an unnatural joker. When you play a joker, play an unnatural joker with the same suit on any run that you add to or create. So like that previous example, that 2 of spades was played in a run of spades. So that is the only situation in which an unnatural run can become a natural run, right? Because of the dynamic property of jokers. So by doing that, you can then take your unnatural run, which has a lower bonus score possibility and bring it into a natural run, which has a higher bonus score possibility. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in lesson 5. I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, please let me know. Please leave comments on the page and I will, or visit the website and leave me comments there, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Okay, that's it for lesson 4. Again, I really appreciate you coming out and watching. Thank you so much. If you are interested, I mean, again, one of the best ways to learn is by doing. So that's one of the major reasons that we created the app. It's available on the App Store now. You can download it on any iPhone or iPad. So the QR code is provided, and I'll put the link in the notes. Um, Also, if you prefer to get ahead of the game, or if you just want to see a little bit more, or if my voice is just that monotonous and boring, feel free to download the ebook or buy the book. It's available on Amazon right now. Link is also provided on the bottom right, and I'll put one in the notes. Thank you so much. Please feel free to leave any comments or criticisms or compliments, whatever you want on the page. And if you could also, if you end up downloading the book or if you end up downloading the app, I'd really appreciate it if you left some feedback there as well and provided a rating as to how good you thought it was. Ideally high, but honestly, whatever you honestly feel is more important. The goal is to make this as useful to everyone as possible. Additionally, please feel free to visit the website playbukharo.com. I'm going to continue to try to update that with more information. And if there's any way that you can see to make it better, I'd love to hear your feedback. Okay, next lesson, lesson 5, we'll talk a little bit more about scoring and how you get points. And until then, thank you again for watching, and I'll see you next time. Have a fantastic day.